morning, Chicago Cubs fans, and we are back with another edition of Cubs Daily. My name is Steven Ryan. The Cubs drop the series opener yesterday, 12-4, against the Kansas City Royals. The Cubs had a 4-1 lead, and then the wheels just fell off. We'll talk about that game. We're going to talk about Matt Shaw's development over the past few games as well, and then we're going to get into some trade targets. I'm also going to give you guys my prospects, who I would trade and what I would trade for in the sense. And just like Jed, no one is untouchable. So before we get into all that, again, if you guys are enjoying the content, again, make sure you guys are smashing that thumbs up button. It helps the Cubs Daily channel. And again, if you are already subscribed, you know I appreciate you. But again, if you're new and you're enjoying it, please subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications. We are coming to you daily with all the Cubs trade talks. We're going to be talking hypotheticals, all that good stuff. And of course, we'll be talking about the Cubs games and reporting any news that goes down on that front. So let's hop right into it. Yeah, the Cubs just absolutely lost that game yesterday. I don't know what else to say. You guys can call it managerial decisions. You guys can call it this and that. The ball was just not going to roll the Cubs' way. I mean, there was the last inning of Ben Brown, and I think that experiment's over, personally. I really wanted to give him a lot of good shots. It was ironic the Phillies actually signed David Robinson. That's who we traded for Ben Brown a few years ago. But unfortunately, it's just not working with Ben Brown. He for whatever reason, he's just hittable, and hitters seem confident against him. I think he's got good stuff. I think he's got some potential, but he needs more development, and I just don't know if that's going to work here in the Chicago Cubs organization. Now, that last inning while he gave up the lead, there was not a lot of hard-hit balls in the sense. Obviously, they did hit a few home runs, but those did come mostly against the bullpen. He gave up the Salvador Perez home run and the Jack Caglione home run, but otherwise, there was a weak ground ball that Bobby Witt beat out on a single. There was a lot of low exit velo balls, which, yes, sometimes do find the grass, but doesn't necessarily mean that the pitcher was being hit well. It just got hit to the right spot. So I'm not trying to back up Ben Brown by any means and say, hey, he needs to start again, because this team is too good and too talented, and we're in a playoff push here. We've already lost the division lead to the Brewers, so we need to kind of realign our focus and say, hey, Ben, either you're going to be part of a trade package somewhere, or you're going to go down to the minors, and that's just where you're going to be for the rest of this season. And maybe in 2026 we can try that again. But one of the few bright spots here for the Chicago Cubs was Matt Shaw. He hit a 3-run homer in the bottom of the bottom of the third, I believe. Either way, it looks like things are beginning to click for him here in this second half, which is exactly what you want to see for the young man, because he was struggling brutally the previous month. It looked like he was just trying to make contact. Now he's looking like he's swinging with authority. And yeah, the Cubs were 4-1 in this game, believe it or not, but unfortunately, it just did not pan out that way the rest of the way. So hopefully Matt Shaw can provide that pop in the bottom of the lineup. And, we don't necessarily have to focus on getting a third baseman necessarily, which I don't think necessarily should be this team's focus going into the trade deadline, which is what we're going to get into next, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about the trade targets. This was a list compiled by Jeff Passan. If you don't know him, he's literally the name of beat reporters in baseball. He put together a top 50 trade list. It has all the names that he said this player would fit well with this team. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean the Cubs are interested in these guys, but here, it's a pretty expansive list. You see right here, Eugenio Suarez, obviously, Sandy Alcantara, obviously, Seth Lugo, obviously. A lot of these names you guys have seen on this channel as I've discussed them in the rumor. A couple different names, though, that are new that I'm interested in. Starting pitcher Taj Bradley of the Rays. That's a good one. Chris Bubich from the Royals. He was an all-star this year as well. And Cade Smith of the Guardians is out there as well. So a couple of fun different names for the Cubs to potentially maybe go and get. I've also heard that, with the the Guardians regarding Cade Smith in Class A, they're taking calls on them. They're not necessarily looking to trade them per se, but either way, you got to make the phone call, right? You got to do your due diligence. The Cubs are looking to supplement this team as it sits right now, and pitching is one of our weaker points, no doubt about it. We got a couple of good arms, no doubt about it. I do like Danny Palencia at the back end of the game, but we do need another high leverage reliever arm, and ideally another one or two starters just to help us in the postseason. So let's get to the nitty gritty here, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm going to flash that list up one more time. You see a lot of different names, but again, no names that really swing the needle in a direction for me per se. The best pitcher on this list, in my opinion, is Zach Gallen. Now, he's not having the best year, okay? He's not having the best year by far, and I'm talking about him as a starter. He's proven the most to me in October. Merrill Kelly is obviously another very, very solid choice as well, and Mitch Keller has done well in Pittsburgh. Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly are both on expiring deals, so I really wouldn't want to give up too much for them. And then, Mitch Keller, he's on a very Cub-friendly contract. He's only making 17, 18, 19, 20 million over the next 2 or 3 years or so. So the Cubs would probably like him to supplement the staff for the next few years. But again, it's all about what we're willing to give up in this situation. And honestly, as a fan, I've gone down our list of our prospects. I think no one's untouchable either, right? I think if there's the right player available, you got to make a deal. So here's what I'm going to do for you guys. I'm going to give you a breakdown, okay? I've taken the top 5 prospects in the Cubs organization, and I'm giving you some examples in my mind of who I would trade them for, okay? Not saying they're going to do it or anything like that, but who I would say, okay, I'm okay if we trade those guys. And then I've broken down 6 through 10, and then I've given you some supplemental names as well. So let's start this off right here. These are our top 5 prospects in our farm system, okay? We've got Cassie, we got Ballesteros, we got Rojas, Alcantara, and Wiggins, okay? Now, the type of player I would really only trade these guys for is a gentleman with multiple major league, a team with multiple major league players and with multiple years of control. So, a team like the Twins does come to my head with that. Right? You're thinking Joe Ryan and Johan Duran, right? And then another team like that comes with the Guardians, right? Clase, Gavin Williams, he's a starter for them. Maybe Cade Smith. Now, those are the kind of guys that I really only want to trade Casey, Ballesteros, Rojas, Alcantara, Wiggins for. And again, I don't think the Twins or the Guardians are necessarily interested in dealing those guys. I just think they're kind of taking phone calls. So, because we also have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, yes, is Casey our top prospect? Yes. But you know what? He's only number 40 in the top 100 in all baseball. Ballesteros is 50th. Rojas is in the 60s. Alcantara's 80. And Wiggins just cracked the top 100 at 99. So, in the grand scheme of all of baseball, those guys might not necessarily hold as much value as we are as fans, right? I would like to see Owen Casey as a Cub, no doubt, but maybe that's why it's best not to move him in this situation, especially if one of those guys aren't available. I don't think moving Owen Casey for Merrill Kelly and Eugenio Suarez is necessarily the smartest move, but it's up to Jed. Jed knows these players. He's scouted them. He's talked to them. He understands their work ethic, all that good stuff. Curious to see as to what he does here. So, for prospects 6 through 10, right, we got Triantos, Birdsell, Cruz, Long, and Hernandez. Now, these are the kind of players I would trade for short-term starting pitching, right, a la, Mitch Keller, even though, he is going to be around a little bit longer. But, Severino, he's got a few years on the deal. Hauser's on a 1-year deal. Kyle Finnegan on a 1-year deal. Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen. All those kind of guys are on those short-term deals. And honestly, I'm okay with kind of moving off these young players because, Triantos, for example, he's due up in 2025, and so is Birdsell. And so these guys just don't have a spot on our major league club, unfortunately. And, I would rather flip them for Major League Baseball players at this current point that could help this team win a World Series this year. Also, let's just be honest. No disrespect to Triantos whatsoever. Very solid ball player, no doubt. But he's not taking over for Dansby Swanson or Nico Horner unless, something's going to really shock the Cubs and they trade Nico Horner. But I don't think, Jed's going to mess with this team's chemistry like that because this team is having a very special season offensively, and Nico can be a catalyst, right? He's one of the top players in baseball with runners in scoring position. He has one of the higher batting averages of all those guys. So I don't see those players being moved in that sense, right? So I just don't think that's possible. Again, Jefferson Rojas is an exception to the rule. He's really, really young. He's already in our top 5, but he's already really, really young, and so he can come through the pipeline progressively and naturally and then take over for Nico or Dansby when the time comes down that sense. But Triantos, he is ready to play ball now. He's ready to go play for a major league team now. Let's trade him to a team where he can go get that shot, and they can give us some arms to help us win in the postseason this season. Now, here is my last graphic, right? These are some of the remaining prospects. All these guys you see right here have an ETA of 2025. Yes, that does not mean they're coming up this year by any means, but that means they are coming up on their deals, and they will be eligible for the Rule 5 draft either this year or next year. And so these are the kind of guys you got to throw in pairing with the 6 through 10 and the 1 through 5 to supplement deals, right? Use as fillers to supplement a trade, especially if you're going to be trading with a team like the Twins or the Diamondbacks or the Guardians, where you're going to be going after multiple players to try and make this push, right? Because very, very rarely, at least in my brief experience on Earth, I know you guys, there's a lot of more experienced baseballers out there. They've watched more games than I have. That's A-okay. But in my brief experience, very rarely do you make deals with multiple teams during a trade deadline, right? It's possible. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I haven't seen it all too often. So maybe the Cubs do it this trade season, right? You never know. So I don't know what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just giving you my thoughts and speculation. Again, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Again, I'm happy to listen to everybody. I will be responding to you guys in the comments. I love hearing everyone's thoughts. Again, if you're enjoying the content, make sure you smash that thumbs up button. And then again, subscribe to the channel for more. Again, appreciate you all listening to Cubs Daily. I will be back tomorrow with another one, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and go Cubs go.